Hilda, thank you. Thank you for coming in to talk with us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
You're from Brownsville?
Well, actually, I grew up in Brownsville. Very blessed family of migrants from Zacatecas, Mexico. My parents, but of course, all my family, my children, my siblings grew up in Brownsville. So pretty much, Brownsville is our hometown.
So you never lived in Zacatecas yourself?
No, but we did do a lot of traveling during the summer months. So it was just awesome just to, in the last day of school and get ready and go and spend 2-3 months in Mexico.
Yeah, my wife's family is from Zacatecas also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I've been there a few times. It's a very interesting city out there in the kind of desert by itself, desert mountains, and great architecture. Love it.
Right. And so, growing up in both sides, you could say, it brought in a lot of opportunities to see the culture, right, and to see how things were celebrated in our hometown with my parents in Zacatecas. So we thought that's the way it was everywhere, and as you start growing up, you realize, oh, well, not everybody celebrates Dia de los Muertos or Dia del Niño. Posadas, pastorelas, so that's why I do what I do now.
So you have a long heritage in celebration of, shall we say, special holidays and religious holidays on both sides of the border, right?
Of course, yes.
And now you grew up in Brownsville. In what part of Brownsville?
I grew up in what we call at that time Military Highway, which was Las Prietas. That we still call it Las Prietas. We have our different sections, so that's where I grew up.
So La Paloma is out that way, isn't it?
I believe so. I believe so. So yes, we were out there, went to Pace High School. Still that little combination of the schools that work together.
And the Military Highway used to be quite drivable in the sense that you could drive from here to McAllen that way, and it was fairly quick. But now it's crowded. Yes.
And my mom still lives there. She still lives in the area of La Galaxia. So we see a lot of traffic now, a lot of business. Yeah. But what I'm happy to see though is that a lot of my friends that grew up together, they still have their family businesses, whether it be car sales, whether it be tire, their own little shops there. Which is really good, tienditas, so it's really good to see that they thrived despite all this growth, which is good, for the small business.
And there's also little pockets of wildlife refuges and preserves out that way that have been established by, I don't quite know who did it, but I think some of the federal government bought up land and preserves it, and down by the river, little pockets, and they create a whole line of preserves for birds and stuff. So you get great birding out there.
Yes, most definitely.
So you moved to Brownsville proper when? To the city, so to speak.
To the city, I was a kid. I would say I'm about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I've pretty much been here. All my recollection of my childhood is here. And as I mentioned, yes, the summers, growing up, being in Mexico, but pretty much going to school here in Brownsville, and my family, my friends here in Brownsville. Of course, family in San Antonio. So going to San Antonio was also a biggie for us, to visit relatives there. Sure. But I've always wondered why my family never chose to move to San Antonio, being that a lot of our family was over there. But Brownsville was the place that I think both my mom and dad were very, very happy to be here. You see, my dad was a sacristan over at Immaculate Conception Cathedral. So for us, it was very important to be connected to the faith, right? And so my dad being the sacristan there, and then all our siblings playing music, because my dad was a musician, he played the accordion. So we're all part of the choir. So it's mom and dad and the little children and the choir. So for us, it was very important to be home when there was mass or any holiday that we needed to not perform, but more be part of the music and the celebration of the mass. It was very important that we would be around. So I feel that was one thing that anchored the family to stay here, and thanks to that, we were able to see other things and see how we could go out in the community and really be part of it and support in any which way we could. Not that we had a lot, but we were very blessed to be able to share the little or the a lot that we had with the community, especially in the downtown area.
So do you play an instrument?
I play guitar.
Oh, yeah.
I play guitar, so it's been, for me, a tremendous blessing, and I say so, very gratefully, because I realized that having that skill helped me deal as growing up, with things. You got a little bit, depressed, or you just get your instrument, you start just, plucking on that. Before you know it, you already had that moment of just kind of letting go whatever was bothering you. So I feel that's also a great impact on why I do what I do.
Was it unusual when you were young for a girl to play the guitar?
I've never thought about it. I've never thought about it. What I can tell you, though, is that my dad was really very fair with all my siblings. So all my brothers and sisters, everybody had to play an instrument. He was one of those that would go to the pawn shops, and if he saw extra instruments that we didn't know how to play, he would take it home and say, here, learn.
That's awesome.
And unfortunately, we didn't have YouTube at that time.
Yeah.
I think if we would have had YouTube, we would have kind of explored more instruments.
Yeah.
But he was a lyric musician, so he just felt that we all had that ability to just pick up an instrument. I didn't. My brothers do.
No.
But my dad did. So I'm in my thinking now, as you grow as an adult, I wonder what was going on in his head. He was probably thinking, well, if I can do it, they can do it too.
But aren't you happy that he did that?
Yes, I'm very happy that he did that, and very happy that I got to explore more of the music world. I don't have a degree. It was not my career path. My career path was more in sociology, fascinated of working with people, especially children and youth. But I see how music can connect you. So for me, it's very easy to pick up my guitar, do a couple of icebreakers. Hey, everybody, let's sing.
Yes,
and everybody gets into it. And then after that, you get to the point, what you want to address.
I was asking about whether it was unusual for you to be a girl playing a guitar way back then. And I think today, once in a while, I'll see last week, as a matter of fact, my daughter was showing me a girl on YouTube, about 15 years old, and she had electric guitar, and she was playing Free Bird masterfully on this, and it just kind of blows your mind a little bit to say, wow, she's 15 and she's playing this old song that's challenging, and she's playing it perfectly. I love it. I love to see people doing that. I've always thought that playing music, I play the piano badly, but I play because it's soothing, like you say. But I've always felt that if you can play an instrument fairly well, you get to participate with genius. You get to play some sort of classical version of songs, and you get to experience genius from the inside, so to speak.
Yes, most definitely. And that's what they were doing at the Brownsville George Ramirez Performing Arts Academy. We've had the opportunity to bring artists who are professional artists, and our kiddos are opening up for them. So you can imagine the excitement, to be able to say, well, I opened for so-and-so, and just bringing that synergy and creating that, inner desire to keep on doing it more. And of course, to do so, you need to get better, and you need to practice, and you need to have those goals. And those are the things that we leverage on as we continue to work with the kids.
Well, let's talk about that a minute. The George Ramirez Performing Arts Center?
Academy.
Now, you started out in working with the Brownsville Housing Authority, right? Or maybe not started out, but that was a part of your career.
Yeah, it's part of my career, but really the whole idea with the nonprofit started at Carlota Petrina Cultural Center.
All right.
So, beautiful story in a nutshell. Because I was at the church, because I was always playing in different masses and celebrations, I met the owner of the Carlota Petrina Cultural Center at that time, Ms. Sonia Camporese. She, knowing that I did a lot of community outreach and community work, offered that I take over the place and use it and utilize it, especially since it was located in a very distressed community. Yeah. Seeing the building and the needs that it had, I could honestly tell you that I closed my eyes and I said, as much as I would want this, I don't know if this would be the right decision. Praying a lot about it, and again, connecting myself to having great mentors at that time, Father Armand Matthew, who, really talked to me about what Ms. Camporese was seeing in me and what her hopes were for this place to be for the community. So I opted to say yes, and with the help of many people, started to develop that place as a cultural center. So things started there. So it started with 4 students, me teaching a guitar class, a friend teaching piano, somebody else doing some painting. Gabriel was part of it at one point as well, and just trying to get the community to have the buy-in and that this place could become a place pointing that beacon of hope for a very distressed community that could come and experience the arts. So it starts there, right? So
you started with 4 students.
4 students.
And how many are there now?
Well, right now we have 300 students.
Wow, 300 students. My goodness.
Yes, and before we moved to the George Ramirez Performing Arts Academy, we moved with 150 children or students during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So the fear there, interestingly enough, we get the keys on March the 13th, because that was my birthday. We get the keys, and yay, we get the keys. Let's bring all the kids. Let's start planning everything. March the 16th, 17th, we shut down for COVID. So having to innovate just like everybody. Yeah. Okay, how are we going to reach out to our kids? How are we going to still keep them engaged? How are we going to, since a lot of our kids don't have internet, since a lot of our kids need hotspots, since a lot of our kids this and that. So just getting creative and started to do home visits, and our team at that time just stood up and said, you know what, I don't mind going to their homes and doing the social distancing and teaching. So I have pictures of some of our instructors outside the house teaching with their face masks, the kids on the other side. But then we realized the other needs that were there, aside from the internet, aside from not having the connectivity, the need for, health, the need for the food insecurity that was there, the need for a lot of things that were happening with the families we were serving. And I think that was a blessing, in essence, for us to be able to create a more robust programming that would be very more holistic and very more inclusive to be able to address those needs.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you have been able to combine this tutoring with a full range of opportunity to help, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then tell me about your kind of typical student, or if we can have such a thing. Do they come to you, or do you reach them through marketing or something? How does a person know about it?
Right. So the beauty of our program is that we still do home visits. Mm-hmm. The beauty of Carlota Petrina is that it's in the heart of the Buena Vida neighborhood, which mm-hmm. is a neighborhood that has about 1,000 families last time when we mm-hmm. did the choice neighborhood whole study. And going door by door, then you realize that the families who are living there, you have the multi family living in one house, and you have not just
multi-generational
and families, right? and they're all there. So they're living with grandpa and grandma, and then you see all the tias and everybody there and all the children. So recruiting a family, and I can tell you one family that I saw yesterday, we just called the grandma and said, hey, we're practicing for a dance for our Frida Kahlo Fest. And she goes, oh, you want all the children to go? Yes, please send all the children. 9 children showed up.
9?
You know, so,
wow.
But because they're all cousins,
Yes,
and so that's really
cool.
been a really great asset of our community. And so on the same token, we're able to call that same family and say, hey, we need to raise money because not all the kids have their ballet shoes, and I need to buy ballet shoes. So the family would say, okay, how many tamales do we need to make? Or how many plates do we need to sell?
That's great.
So it's been, that wonderful relationship with the same community we're serving that we call, low income family, but very rich in the culture because they treasure it, because they value it, because they see the value in what we're doing. And for us, is that validation gives us that energy to say, hey, okay, well, let's do something else. We know we're going to have that support.
Yeah, you remind me of, I think she's from McAllen actually, but there was a student who was into folklorico, and then she ended up dancing in New York because the New York theater scene started realizing the richness of folklorico,
Yes.
and they started showcasing it in various ways in Broadway. And I don't remember her name, but I know that she came from the Valley.
Yeah, I think she might be from the Nepantla. Is it the Nepantla dance group? And if it's her, she's a performer for our kids, and our kids have opened for her. Again, with the same inspiration. So she not only came and performed, but she also came and she talked to the students and just encouraged them to dream and dream big, And we're very fortunate. We live in a country that, there's opportunities.
Sure.
And so part of our mission is to be able to create those opportunities for our families to experience the arts, but not just experience it, also, be able to have the education. And so we don't have an age group defined as to it's only for kids. No, we teach them. We start them at the age of 3, and our oldest student is 94 taking violin classes.
94?
94 taking violin
How
classes.
wonderful.
So
That's
it's just been a great magical experience to see just the beauty of and the power of people, right, and the power of the love for the arts. And just being, authentic and going out there and say, this is what I have to offer. Join us if you can, whenever you can, and when you can't, it's okay. Come back whenever you're available.
Is it free?
For the most part, yes.
For the most part,
yes. Again, being at the Brownsville George Ramirez Performing Arts Academy has opened these opportunities for low moderate income families to apply. So there's an application process. If they qualify, they do get the services for free. If they don't qualify, that's where ROCA comes in. If the family is in need, then ROCA comes in with scholarships. And a lot of the
and where
funding,
does the ROCA get their funding?
yeah, a lot of our funding comes from our events. So
Okay.
right now we have an event coming up, the Frida Kahlo Fest. So we're celebrating 10 years of celebrating Frida Kahlo. So it becomes a platform for our kids to perform, really. So it's like a 3 or 4-fold opportunity because our kids perform, our families do the fundraising. So our ladies, the damas, the parents of the kids, they do the loteria, the gentlemen sell the plate sales, and so it becomes a fundraiser. But at the end, it's about seeing our kids perform, having our students have that platform, and also impacting our local community because then we bring in vendors, and it becomes a big festival, that everybody can come and enjoy.
And when they perform, you're talking about you have musical performance and you have dance.
Yes.
And artistic paintings displayed and all of this.
Right. And most of them are our community. It's our community. So for this performance, we're having our conjunto program. So our conjunto program, we have start them off at age 4, and from age 4 to 12, and they're playing, your classic in conjunto We're also having our folklorico dancers out there. We're also having our Roca scholars putting up their art, and then our ladies doing different activities to do the fundraising, and then our partners. So one thing that I really want to stress here is that we cannot do things without partners. Our partners are really the heart of everything that we do. I can tell you right now, one of our main partners in this event is Allegro Ballet. So Allegro Ballet is a for-profit organization. They do have their business, but again, that partnership brings them to our Performing Arts Academy. So they're bringing the expertise in the dance, and they're sharing it and bringing it to someone who couldn't afford it, and getting the same quality of education that their kids who pay are getting.
That's wonderful. And this is downtown.
Downtown.
And it's I've seen the building, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, it's big, more than 100, I think it's 10,000 square feet.
Oh, that's really big.
So two huge dance floors, the music rooms are great. So we're able to teach piano at the same time, violin and guitar. So several classes are going on at the same time. And it's just the beauty of having, all those different sounds and the feel. I think a lot of our families love that, to be able to be out there and connect and with other families that might be dealing with some things, and
sure,
support each other.
I was wondering if when you go to these houses where you're making a lot of racket over there. Does it run out of battery?
Yes, we're good.
When you go to these homes where you have multi-generational families in the same home, I was just wondering if you ever run into like a grandfather who used to be a mariachi in Monterrey or something.
Yes, yes, we see a lot of that, and the desire for their kids to follow the steps, or the parents coming in and saying, "Oh, su abuelo play the guitar, tiene una guitarra, they have a guitar there, and we're hoping they can use it." So some of these kids are bringing instruments that belong to their aunts, to their uncles, to grandparents. Sometimes they're not in the best shape, but we respectfully try to get it for them to get fixed. If not, we have instruments. So not long ago, we received a tremendous contribution from UTRGB. We got 80 string instruments.
80?
80 string instruments, violins, cellos, double bass. I mean, you should have seen that day. It was just so glorious. It was very cold, I remember, but just to go outside and bring them inside, you didn't feel the cold, and that has given us that now timeline to get this hopefully string program going with youth, and having an official youth string orchestra right out of the Performing Arts Academy.
Do you find a lot of unnurtured talent, where you find these kids that, my goodness, they have wonderful raw talent, they just need to be nurtured? Yes,
most definitely. And with that also comes other challenges. Some of them might be nutrition. Some of them might be, I've encountered a lot of children who are living in hotels, right? And they're not homeless, but they're living in hotels and addressing needs such as nutrition, because they might get the assistance, but they're purchasing their hot dogs or their burritos from a gas station because they don't have the refrigerator, or they might not have a table to sit with the family. So,
but isn't living in a hotel enormously expensive? I mean, the day-to-day cost of that.
There's some that have like monthly rates, and talking about housing. I mean, those are some of the issues that we find in our city. Affordable housing, and I'm talking to some of the families. It's like, why chooses this is what we can afford, because we don't have to put a down payment, because we don't have to pay the electricity. It's just a one flat rate of $500 a month, and that is something that's affordable. They can do. So, things like that just gives you that. Desire to be creative, to be able to continue and serve. And, I'm not saying we're saving the world, but at least bringing something that brings hope. And I think the arts do that.
Well, just giving them a few hours out of one room has got to be wonderful for one's mental health.
Exactly.
Because they're in there with 4 other kids or whatever. That's got to be tough.
Right. I realize, and as, and I'm not sure it happens to everyone, but as you're growing up and you realize, how you grew up, we didn't have everything, but my parents, thank God, were able to provide for us. So we did have a table to sit and eat together and carry a conversation, and whatever it was on the table was good. We didn't know whether it was a steak or la mortadela, the bologna, but it was just that growing up and seeing some of these families who are eating on their bed, right, as they're getting their meal, and then seeing what the meal they're having just brings this desire to we need to do something, and like you're saying, even if it's just a couple of hours where they can come to our centers, whether it be at Carlota Petrina and have a meal together and something that they enjoy. We just had a edible art project, and we brought a whole bunch of watermelons and melons and apples.
What a great idea.
And the kids started to make figurines with them. They made swans, they made baskets, and they're all just having a whole fun, working with it. So we've been playing with that idea. Okay, how do we bring this edible art idea to marginalized communities like this, to know that sometimes we need to make choices on our health as well, because it's important.
Sure. Now, do these students walk to the center? Do you have a bus that gets them or anything
I
like
wish
that?
we had the transportation, really. If I've been praying for that. A lot of the kids that do go to our centers at Carlota Petrina are within walking distance.
Right.
So the activities we have at Carlota Petrina, it's not something odd to see a child walk from their house to the center, or leave their bike outside, or even have their dog waiting for them outside the center as they go in to do things. So I think that's been really, really good for us there. For the Performing Arts Academy, it's a little bit farther, but good thing that we have public transportation that is not far from the center. But then, other issues come about, in security, safety.
Sure.
Not having enough transportation throughout the city and other things. But for the most part, our students try to get there, and the parents make a great effort to get them there when they need to be there.
Well, what I like about what you're saying is that there's 1,000 reasons that you might not do this, but you find, the 10 good reasons to do it.
We have to.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Now, I wanted to get a background on the Carlota Museum because a lot of people are familiar with. They passed it. It's been there a long time, and a lot of people know nothing about it, how it came to be. So, can you tell me the background of it? How did that come out? Where did she come from?
Right. Well, so I think a lot of people are familiar with that space as the Casablanca Hotel, because it was the Casablanca Hotel before Carlota Petrina bought it. The story that I heard from Ms. Camporese was that Carlota Petrina was in Italy. As you know, she was a painter, and she was living in Italy. And it was time for her to come back to the States. Actually, her name was Charlotte Kennedy.
Oh,
but
Charlotte
she
Kennedy,
married.
yeah.
But she married John Petrina and changed her name to Carlota Petrina. So most of her life she lived in Italy.
How interesting. But where was she from originally?
From New York.
From New York.
From New York. So she was from New York, related to the Kennedys, and she was, asking her son. I feel that I need to go back to the States. She was probably in her 80s or so, and it was time for her to come back, settle down. And I personally feel that she was like, I want to go home, my last days, and just be where I belong. And so she came back to the States. She went to New York, but it was too cold.
Uh-huh.
So she commissions her son, Anthony Petrina, to look for a nice, warm place. And he finds Brownsville.
It's warm.
It's warm. But I think she was probably looking for that combination of having the island since she was in Capri and Sorrento. So she wanted that kind of feel, right? So they had the Saparai. So they come, he purchases the property, and she turns it into her museum. So it becomes a Carlota Petrina museum. So she would live in the little house next door. She would paint, and then she would have her art there. And they're talking about the 80s, more or less.
But she was painting in Italy.
She was painting.
She was an artist painting
in Italy.
And she sold paintings.
She sold paintings. She did a lot of illustrations for Paradise Lost, which is still literary work that you find it at the universities and some of the studies. So she comes to Brownsville, and I feel that she was that connection to the local artist at that time, because at that time you didn't have the Museum of Fine Arts, you didn't have a lot of things. So for what I see and for what Ms. Camporese would tell me, that's where everybody would gather, right, to have their art exhibits or even to have performances. As we continue to work out of the Carlota Petrina and we turned it into a cultural center, I've encountered a lot of people who mention, oh, yeah, we used to perform there, or yeah, we used to do the exhibit there. Ms. Petrina was very good about inviting in the community, and she was wanting to unite them and have them come together, and her love of not just the art but the community was very important. So
she would be so happy that you were continuing her mission.
I think so. So. Sometimes I do think about it and say, what would she say? That what's happening here, and I more so for Miss Sonia Camporese, that was her dream, and that was one promise I made to her, was that it would be for the community, and that it would be to make sure that the art was for everyone, because it's a right that we have. It's not a privilege. It's a right. It's a human right, and I think that the more that we have it available, especially for families who might not be able to afford it, can have it and have access to it.
Do you want to turn that off so it won't be in the background? Or it's probably going to hang up now. Or someone really wants to talk to you. I'd rather just pause, because this is just edited out. It's no big deal.
Right.
I don't like to be, when something's on the air and you hear the phone in the background. It's not very professional. You don't want that.
I like this setup. We have a group of Roca Scholars. So the Roca Scholars have started a project called FAME. Remember that the Burger the Fame? The Fame. Well, we use it as an acronym for film, acting, music, and entrepreneurship. So we just had our FAME summer camp. And so one of the goals that they have, they've been doing music production, but one of the things that they want to do is do some podcasts and target youth. I feel that youth, people keep on saying the youth is the future. No, the youth is the present. And they have so much knowledge and technology, and it's amazing what these kids can do. Just give them the okay, and they'll take off.
Yeah, they're incredibly creative.
Yes.
And because they've already been raised on this technological world, and their brains are hardwired differently from yours and mine, and therefore they bring significant creative chops to this technology, to marry it with music and language, and to do just enormously creative things with it.
Yes.
I find it really inspiring to see what they can do.
Yes, so do we. So we do a lot of our investment is on youth development. So yes, priority is to get them to our center. From there, identify where they want to spend this energy and their time. But then beyond that is that youth development. At the end, creating opportunities where they be good people, and if they learn the skill well and they want to monetize in it, fantastic, but more so to know their value, and a person that has that positive experience is going to think different.
What do most of your students want from it? What are they wanting?
They're wanting to learn of course the skill, but they want to perform.
Okay.
They want to perform, and I'm very amazed that when I call and say, well, I need, a group for this, who's ready? And people raise their hands, and they're ready.
I'm ready.
Like, I'm ready. Let's do it. Even the little ones. And so that's great. That's great that, they encourage each other, and it's okay. And the idea of it's okay, you just getting up there. You're already successful, just getting up there and performing.
So it builds their self-esteem.
Exactly. A lot of self-esteem and self-worth. And again, now that they know they can monetize on it, they've been intrigued. Okay, how do we do this? So taking them to farmers market, some of our kids have performed at weddings or quinceañeras, like especially mass, and then they get paid, right? And I was like, oh, okay, And we had one kid, this was really, really funny and interesting. We had one kid waiting for a ride. So he's waiting for his ride outside the Performing Arts Academy, and he decides to take his guitar out. He's just playing, waiting for his ride, and a lady passes by, and she gives him, I don't know how much she gave him. And then we saw it, and he looks at us, and he's like, she gave me money. And then Alejandro, our administrator, says, keep it, it's yours, she gave it to you.
How wonderful.
So he's just like, wow, something happened in his mind. So like, okay, I can do this for money. Yes, and we've heard stories.
I've got a guitar, I've got a business.
Exactly. And I think that's another way we also profess what we do with our nonprofit. I always tell them, our nonprofit is for the community, and it's at the community. So yes, having these beautiful buildings and a place to do things, it's wonderful. But I could easily take my guitar, go under a tree, and get kids together. Okay, let's play. Let me teach you what I know. And there's our nonprofit, and there is our community. So I think that's also the value that our nonprofit brings.
I was with my wife in Mexico City a few years ago, and we were walking, I don't remember, somewhere around the Zona Rosa, and we heard a cello playing Yo-Yo Ma, playing Bach Suite. Oh. That's why I say Yo-Yo Ma. And it was back a ways, a few blocks we could hear it. And so we went over there to where he was playing and paid him to play it again, And it was so beautiful because it was outdoors, and something about the architecture in there, caused this to amplify itself in these old colonial buildings, and it was just gorgeous. And I still remember it as one of my great life memories, is to stand there, for 15 minutes listening to this guy play so beautifully. And of course, he got tipped. He was making a great living off of playing on the street, but I say Yo-Yo Ma had nothing on him. And we don't have so much of that here in Brownsville. The street performer. Maybe it's too hot. I don't know, but I love it when the great performers do that. And they don't have to be great. They can just be, they've got 3 songs they do really well.
Yes.
But I love your story about the kid.
Yes, and
being
so
amazed.
Yeah, and we're very blessed again to be downtown, because we are trying to at least commit to doing an event once a month at Market Square.
Okay.
So once a month you'll find a Revival Cultural Arts in Carlota Petrina doing something. Like I mentioned, we have our Frida Kahlo Fest. After that, we're having a folklorico competition. Then we have a cosplay. So we're doing Dia de los Muertos, we're doing posadas and pastorelas. So again, bringing our community, and we just had our God Bless America festival. And so we are, again, working with our community and discovering that, having kids perform brings everyone, the abuelita, you have the grandma, uncles, everybody comes in. I mean, in our last performance, we had close to 300 people come to see their performance for the God Bless America. So we leverage a lot on the family and the connection and bringing our kids to perform. So, and that in turn is giving these kids that confidence, and they want to keep on doing it. So what's next? Have little 5-6-year-olds asking, okay, well, so what's next? What am I going to wear? And of course, that's where our challenges come in, because, where do you get, costumes for 50 kids and instruments and shoes and all that and food and but the neat thing about it is being able to talk to the same family, because these programs have to be self-sustainable. They have to take care of it themselves. We cannot depend on anyone else but ourselves to be able to continue this. They have to be self-sustainable. So
what do they do with cosplay?
Cosplay is the whole idea that you find a character and you make your own costume, but it has to be homemade. So homemade. So if you're Spider-Man, right, you make your own costume, but it's homemade. You get creative with it, and so for Hispanic Heritage Month, we're doing Mexican cosplay. So we're bringing the characters like El Chavo del Ocho, Chapulín Colorado, the Santo, those, and hoping that our own community will have a bite. It's something different. It's something new.
Frida Kahlo.
Frida Kahlo. You have Frida Kahlo. You have the Diego Rivera. You have all these Hispanic, icons. Santa Ana. Yes. All these characters that we hear of, and then just having the community make their own costumes, homemade, and having a contest who did the best, work at their costume, and we're hoping that people will have a buy-in and that we could do it every year. So this is the first year we do it. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. I'm hoping our own community is committed. So my goal is to get at least 100 people to cosplay with me from our own community, and hopefully encourage others.
That's great. Well,
and that's the way you grow programs.
Wonderfully creative work here. I love it.
So it's just getting people to have fun with it. We have to. I mean, life's so short. You just need to enjoy it and make the best of it.
I was thinking of, when you were talking about Mexican characters, Carlos Fuentes, the Mexican writer, came here years ago. And it was my job to pick him up at the airport. And actually, Tony Zabaleta and I together picked him up at the airport and kind of took care of him during his time here. He was here about 3 days. But one of the things I remember distinctly is that when we went to eat in Mexico, everybody knew him. He was well known. Even the busboys came up from the back to get his autograph and all that. But on this side, nobody much knew him. Yes. He was kind of invisible to some extent. But on that side, he was a rock star. So it's just real interesting to see how the cultural power changes by just coming across the river.
Yes. We just had before pandemic, we had one of our events, Crearte Expo, and we had Joaquin Cosio. What you just mentioned reminded me of that. Joaquin Cosio is a well-known Mexican actor who's won, very prestigious awards. And we picked him up in Matamoros. And everybody in Matamoros wanted his autograph. And they're like, and they knew all his characters and they wanted to take pictures. We crossed the border, and he stopped at the checkpoint and looked at his documents and this. And at that same time, we had Renee Victor, who was the voice of Coco, Mama Coco, and they didn't know who she was either. So they talked about it. Said it's just very interesting how just crossing the bridge changed completely for them, and they had to go through the same process of, figuring out who they were because of the luggage they were carrying and all that. But that was interesting that you mentioned it. We had that experience.
Well, I do like that you started in talking about Zacatecas and the desire to preserve the old ways here as well, and so that the students raised here were connected to those roots to their cultural traditional roots very important.
Exactly. That's very important for us. Of course, we have this opportunity and we want to take advantage of it, and it's very rich and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, there's always something to celebrate. I know that people make fun of Brownsville always being a fiesta, but I think we because we have so many things to celebrate. Yes, it's always a fiesta, and it's okay. That's always a fiesta.
What would you like to see if I I know you've been dealing with these institutions and building them without a lot of money. And it may be in some ways having a lot of money would dilute what you're doing. But just for fun, if you had like $20 million, what would you do with it? How would you make things better?
$20 million. I can't even imagine having $20 million.
I'll talk to my buddy Elon and we'll see what we can do. But I'm just curious, if you had big money and you could follow your dream, what would that dream be?
I think we would have more theaters. I think we would have more spaces for performers. I think, this idea of having street performers, so that it would be okay, that we would be able to invest more on youth development, on young adult development. We have a lot of great, creative and talented youth that leave high school, right? And it's in high school that they get to do all this performance. But once they graduate, where do they go, right? And it might not be their career path. Right. So where are those institutions that can provide that follow-up? We're trying to do it in the little way that we can, but if we had more of that, I think you would have a city that would be so vibrant in the talent, that you will have, those theaters, you have, this opportunity to really experience the arts and highlight the talent that we have here in Brownsville.
Well, I think something you point out is very worth highlighting, and that is that you don't have to be a professional musician making a living off of it to be incredibly nurtured by it in your life.
Right.
Your life can be enriched enormously just from being able to play an instrument just for you. You don't even have to have an audience like me. I play the piano, but I play it for me, and it's a kind of form of meditation. And I think that you can do it as an accompaniment to your life, the way some people that are, I think of Ben Neese, he's a lawyer who loves playing live,
Yes, and he's awesome. He's very supportive of the arts, very supportive of our projects, and like I mentioned, unfortunately we don't have those spaces. I have a production that can bring you 500-600 people. Where do I take them? When the only place available is booked for the next 2-3 years, right? So you end up looking, and then with our partners, seeing that they have to go to another city to be able to produce, to do their productions.
I think of the little amphitheater at TSC that's outdoors. They used to have a lot of live bands would play there, Battle of the Bands, back in the 80s and 90s, and I don't think, and it's actually designed for, I think it was designed for Shakespearean theater.
Yes,
and the stage is in disrepair, I believe, but it has a place underneath for dressing, and so
I love that space.
There was a dream there once upon a time for live performance, and maybe under the right weather it could be used again, but it'll only seat, I think, maybe 150, something like that. But
even something like that would be fantastic, right? So right now we've been using the Market Square, and we're very blessed that the Historical Association has been working with us, giving us discounts that we're able to use that space, but it's again limited to what you can do, right? So if we had those spaces, right? If I had those $20 million, I think the Capitol would be, that place that we would want to see again, the Majestic, those amazing places that were at one time.
Well, you know, is it the Majestic? Is the Majestic downtown across
Yes.
from the El Jardín?
No, that's the Capitol.
The Capitol. Okay. Well, the Capitol, I believe it's the Capitol is owned by was owned by the Hoblitzell Foundation, and the Hoblitzell Foundation has a program where they will help a community convert the theaters that they once owned into community spaces. And they have a foundation that's designed to do just that. They'll give you, I don't know, a couple $100,000 to help renovate this space for community good. And I don't know if they've ever pursued that, but I know it exists at the
It's good to
Hoblitzell.
look into.
Because I once saw the books for the Hoblitzell Foundation for that theater, and it's really interesting I mean, I'm talking about the actual books where you see how much popcorn was, like 5 cents,
Wow.
and Coke and hot dog, and this back in the 30s when there was an active theater, and it really was Hoblitzell owned a lot of theaters around Texas and became very wealthy. So when he died, he created this foundation that said this is for communities to convert those old theaters into a community space that's useful for the arts.
Yes. Well, let's look into it.
So that would be a good one to pursue, Gabriel. You can get right on that, okay? Well, thanks so much for the conversation.
Thank
I
you.
loved it.
Thank
And
you
I
so
loved
much.
hearing about Carlota, Charlotte. I had no idea about that background and how she came to be here. But I do think she would be very proud of what you're doing with the space.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the invitation.